soulmates, it is finally Friday.
Yeah.
My God, we have plenty to discuss. November 18th it is. Welcome to FOXSOUL's Black Report. I'm Courtney Hicks.
And I'm Nicordelai Corte. We are honored to stand right here behind this desk each and every day to take you on a journey across Black America and the stories that impact our people.
Oh, we bring you our news, our views, and our voice. So, topping our headlines today, we begin with the FBI, who is now launching an investigation into the mysterious death of 25-year-old Shanquilla Robinson. You've probably seen the story across social media, the young businesswoman who was murdered while vacationing in Cabo. Reports initially suggested that Robinson died of alcohol poisoning, but results of her autopsy report determined that the woman died from a broken neck and suffered severe spinal cord injuries. Robinson, who is from Charlotte, North Carolina, went to Cabo with 6 friends, I use that word loosely, on October 28th and was found unconscious the afternoon of October 29th. We will absolutely continue to follow this story and bring you the latest.
Terrible. Now off to Pennsylvania, where a former Philadelphia cop will now serve almost a year behind bars for the shooting death of an unarmed Black man. A judge sentenced Eric Rutch to 11.5 to 23 months in prison for the killing of Dennis Plowden back in 2017. Now, in court this week, Rauch broke down in tears during statements. He also apologized to Plowden's family for the split-second decision that ended Plowden's life. Family members and District Attorney Larry Krasner are objecting to the length of the sentence.
It's almost getting like tiring, even though we can't give up. It's getting so tiring reporting these cases, whether they've just happened or they're in the court system or we haven't seen the justice that we would expect to see when you have cases like this. It is so tiring.
But yet and still, on the other hand, it's progress because remember once upon a time when police officers, didn't go to court. Where they got off, where prosecutors said, we're not going to prosecute. And so it's very tiring. There's a lot of fatigue that sets in, but, we've got to stay the course. It is progress nonetheless.
Yeah, body cams, cell phones have made the difference. You can see now in the headlines stories coming back around from years ago before the technology. People are finding different ways to find their innocence. So there is some positive in it, but it is just tiring. It really is.
That's right. Yeah. But, when I hear stories like this, I think of George Floyd and how the George Floyd case, the Derek Chauvin case, really represented a watershed moment for our country and the world in so many ways. A watershed moment where, these police officers weren't able to operate with impunity. And part of it was because we had body cam footage. We had folks using their cell phones, filming the terrible murder of George Floyd that happened. And so hopefully this is an era of increasing accountability for law enforcement.
Right, and that village made the difference in that case. It made the difference.
It takes a village to raise a child, and it takes a village to hold folks accountable.
Yeah.
That's right. Big changes coming to the way policing is happening in Philadelphia. Speaking of Philly, under a new deal with the Fraternal Order of Police, the city can hire trained civilians to handle traffic enforcement, abandoned car removal, and evidence examination. The move is intended to free police officers up to focus on critical areas of law enforcement by delegating roles in traffic regulation, roles in addition to abandoned car removal, evidence examination, and other areas to appropriately train civilians. Now, the arbitration deal also includes hiring and retention bonuses for cops to boost recruitment efforts, as well as a required $1.5 million donation.
All right, so let's shift gears here as folks are excited about the potential of New York Congressman Hakeem Jeffries being endorsed to be the next leader of the Democrats. This all comes after U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's decision not to run for re-election following the Democrats losing the House majority to Republicans and after the brutal attack on her husband by an intruder at their San Francisco home. If elected, Jeffries would be the first Black Democratic leader ever in Congress.
Meanwhile, Black Twitter is stepping into the political ring, but this time the conversation is questioning whether a candidate is white passing. We're talking about Kari Lake, a former right-wing news anchor who's recently lost her bid to become governor of Arizona to Katie Hobbs. However, she's refusing to concede. Meanwhile, Black Twitter is challenging the results of Lake's ancestry and whether or not she's been a woman of color, passing as a white woman the whole time. Carrie Lake has not responded to the speculation, but says she's focused on making Arizona better. Not whiter, better.
Wow, you know, Black Twitter is infamous for bringing all kind of conversations to the table, and it also speaks to how we sort of kind of use this huge social media platform to keep our conversations to ourselves, because Black Twitter was like, you think?
That's right.
There's been a lot of speculation for a long time about what culture she actually belongs to, and we've seen stories, we've read books, and heard tales of how necessary it was back in the day to pass for white to get certain privileges and things of that nature. But fast forward to 2022, I think people see that as a problem.
But I think to your point about people seeing this as a problem, I think part of the problem is it's one thing to be white passing, it's another thing to peddle in white supremacy. And for people that have been tracking Carrie Lake's campaign and her list of endorsements, including the former president, Donald Trump, a lot of folks feel like it's been a lot of the latter, peddling in white supremacy. And so, my goodness, gold medal to Black Twitter, for calling this out.
Right.
And it also brings to light the importance that Black Twitter plays in the digital ecosystem. There are a lot of folks that are worried with Elon Musk taking control of Twitter.
What will happen?
What does that mean for Black voices on the platform that have been really good at calling a thing a thing?
Absolutely. It has been such a platform in heavier news topics as far as justice is concerned, and on the lighter topics. Anytime an award show, a Black award show is on television, you are tuning in to Black Twitter, because it will definitely give you a laugh and help your evening along. So we'll have to keep tabs on this and see what happens. But according to Black Twitter, we've been knowing what's going on.
That's right. Everything has always been a little bit better.
That's right.
Because of Black Twitter.
Now, for somebody who is in fact Black, history is in the making as Democrats in the Maine House of Representatives nominated the state's first Black woman to serve as Speaker. Her father was the first Black member of the Maine legislature. We're talking about Representative Rachel Talbot Ross, seen here, who was nominated over Ed Crockett to lead the chamber. Her selection is all but assured since Democrats do control the state house. Now, Talbot Ross said she's ready to focus on challenges, including the rising cost of living, climate change, and a lack of access to affordable housing and health care.
From diversifying the Maine legislature to Capitol Hill, there's a new campaign being launched by the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies, or better known as the Joint Center, and it's to help diversify Congress. They're calling on Congress to fill top staffing positions with more people of color, specifically betting on Black folks, betting on Black talent. The new push is being called Hill Diversity, and it will also track the trends of every member of Congress. The Joint Center also calls themselves America's Black Think Tank, and they say that they're going to do everything possible to represent the diversity of our nation.
And major changes are expected for Cleveland State University as trustees have voted to change the name of the law school. Now, the board voted unanimously to accept the recommendation from CSU's president to change the name so to remove a reference to U.S. Supreme Court Justice John Marshall, who was Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court from 1801 to 1835. Marshall has come under scrutiny for upholding slavery and his ownership of a large number of slaves. No word on when the name change will take effect, but for now, it will be called the CSU College of Law. So this is progress. I know as a professor, this is another one of those stories that you can definitely tap into and understand, and really for everybody else, in regards to that racial uprising and all of the interesting conversation and push for change that came with some of these statues that honor and represent folks who didn't have our best interests in hand back in the day.
Yeah, and I really appreciate this movement. There's a movement afoot, to tear these statues down and erect new statues that are more representative of some of the hidden figures in our country.
Diverse.
And I really appreciate the fact that a lot of this is being driven by folks on the local level.
That's right.
There's no national anybody that's saying, take this statue down and take that statue down. These are folks in community that are engaged in conversation, and they're deciding that they want to track in a different direction. And so I totally dig that they are holding off on renaming it altogether, but they are moving to remove the name of the former Supreme Court Justice.
That's right.
You know, I think this is community at its finest.
I agree with you. It's definitely been a grassroots effort.
Yeah.
And we love to see it.
We sure do.
Yeah. Now over to Florida, where a community is working together and wearing purple to honor one brave little girl. You may find her very familiar. Take a look.
She was scared and frightened, but she powered through it. And that is really what we're symbolizing today.
Walking together wearing purple, students from Bay Haven School of Basics Plus commemorated the actions of one brave little girl.
We're showing that everybody can power through it, no matter what race or color or background.
42 years ago, this photo shows then 6-year-old Ruby Bridges of New Orleans walking into an elementary school. The first steps towards integration.
There's nobody who should be excluded from anything.
Bridges faced upset and jeering crowds. By her side, federal marshals protected her. Today, students walked alongside their parents and were greeted with support.
She set the tone for equality and power for these young leaders.
Asa Harris's son Ian, like Ruby in 1960, is in first grade.
Equality is for everyone.
Parents organized the walk as a way to show children they are impactful. Bay Haven was the first elementary school in Sarasota to be integrated.
I think it's a really important lesson in being brave and going against the grain and standing up for what you know is right.
And to remember an important part of history.
Everything that should be commemorated does not have to be in February during Black History Month.
Honoring a little girl, now grown, that made a difference.
You may come across a hurdle, but you can always walk through anything.
Wow, what an amazing story. Every time I see that picture of little Ruby, I'm like, she had to know that this was something different. I don't know at 7 years old, what, first grade, if she understood the depth of it all, but she was just as cute as a button, and you could tell she was determined to go through those doors. And every time I tap into this story, it's just so inspiring and encouraging, and it really checks me as a grown-up as to, you know, where my encouragement, where my inspiration, where my courage lies, because this was a baby. And she marched on into those doors.
And speaking of courage, I mean, you're right, that was a very powerful demonstration of courage by just a little girl. And as I look at the black and white footage, I can't help but think of my mom, who grew up in Palmetto, not far from Sarasota, Florida. And I remember the stories of her integrating into a white high school her sophomore year in Manatee County, and what her experience was like, quite frankly, how traumatic that experience was for her. And so, you know, when I look at little Ruby Bridges, I think of my mother, Mrs. Deborah Corte, and the courage that she and so many others summoned. These folks are not that old. You know, my mom's actually celebrating her birthday on Sunday. Happy birthday, Mom.
Happy birthday, Mom.
You know, Mom's 69 years old, right?
That's young. So in the scheme of things, it's very young. It wasn't that long ago.
This was not that long ago, and so what a beautiful thing to see those little black babies learning their history. And being supported by their parents and community.
And not only little black babies, because, you know, looking at the package, I was very encouraged to see, you know, a very diverse group of parents, and it looked like students. And so it was very encouraging and inspiring to see people outside of the cultural understanding how important this moment was. And it was about race, but in the scheme of things, it's about humanity. It's about fairness. It's about equal rights. And for folks to be able to see beyond that and see all aspects of this story is encouraging, especially when we have stories about, you know, critical race theory being shot down and books not being available for students to learn about our history and everybody else, along with everybody else's history. It's good to see something like that.
I mean, to your point, this is the very history in schools that so many folks, particularly in the state of Florida and everywhere else, too many places in other parts of the country, they don't want little kids to learn this history. And so we've we've got to be vigilant, and we've got to make sure that we continue to share that history, pass that history to the next generation, so it's not forgotten nor repeated.
Amen. And happy birthday, Mama Cortez. Still ahead on Fox Soul's Black Report, shocking new numbers when it comes to welfare.
That's right. We'll tell you which group is impacted most by benefits. You're watching Fox Soul's Black Report.